Alright, so now we get the scene where Qwark confronts Chairman Drek in the movie and eventually also Nefarious.
Which admittedly kind of comes a bit out of nowhere in the game since we
Especially
don't
if the,
see a lot of
yeah,
Qwark's build up to this.
yeah, especially if we assume that unlike much like in the original game, Qwark was not corrupted halfway through, but from the beginning. You're telling me that all this time we didn't knew when Nefarious was on board?
Yeah, this is why I definitely go with the idea that, like the movie, Qwark still had to be tainted during the events of it, but still, this
It's
is
pretty
still
clear to me
wonky.
Insomniac did not like the idea of Qwark, being corrupted halfway through and liked the original way the original game was handling his douchebaggery, so they wanted to, I guess, reach a compromise with it.
The problem is, if this was Insomniac's idea here, then I hate to say it, but guys, you made a major faux pas there,
At the very
essentially.
least, TJ
Iro-
Fixman, so, if there's someone, again, while not always the main writer, it's usually, the only writer is usually defaults to him.
And yes, just like in the movie, sorry if you wanted to fight against Drek.
Yeah, you're not getting it. You would think that the game will try to circumvent that by having first a fight with Drek and then this happening. Possibly to, having the ways you still confronting him. But again, default to the usual, game was rushed.
Yeah, like, I mean, granted, if they really wanted to, they could have made, like, a cutscene even showing Drek, you know, turning back to normal and then having to fight Ratchet and Clank and whatnot, but alas. That being said, again,
So yeah,
I'll
also,
admit,
your final dungeon is mentioned, it's the Deplanetizer again. Yes, there is a small tract added to it, but you're literally retreading a dungeon you did, like, 2 parts ago. Again,
I'm
I
sorry,
get
last I
it.
checked this.
I get it. Rushed beyond belief, but holy shit, guys. The only thing added to it is that since now you're a Clank, there are some minor nooks and crannies and collectibles that you can get that you couldn't before, but that's it.
This is so bizarre. The final level. Oh, okay. To be fair, DuckTales reused a level as its final level. Difference. That's the original DuckTales. Like, I mean, back in like the 90s,
It's
where
also a
games
case
were
where the
a lot
original game is
smaller.
remade completely
It's the 80s.
and then something is added onto it. While instead in here the game had to be already altered because it is based more like on the movie. So instead this is the change that we got. And to be fair, again, that's basically because it's strictly sticking to the movie script, meaning that we have to end here. And to be fair, they actually bothered to implement again the holo guys like you did on Chairman Drek's fleet, if you recall. That was kind of like the penultimate level, so they want to recreate that to an extent.
The big red one, like all buttons.
That's again was looking kind of like also in the original, both on Drek's fleet and on Qwark 2, where the the warbots, if you were not donning the holo guys, they will activate the big red button to incinerate you on the spot.
Like, but no, last I checked, this is Ratchet and Clank, not Metroid. Like, I feel like you can only really get away with this sort of thing if you're doing a Metroidvania, essentially. Because, in that case, it makes sense you're revisiting sections of the level, because, in a sense, in a Metroidvania, the whole game is arguably one big level map, essentially.
It's also a bit
This,
dull
though,
in terms of design. Again, let's not take into account the fact that we just visited this place, in not too long ago, which is one of the major sticking points. But let's assume that this would be, your first visit to the Deplanetizer, nothing new. Compared to the average final level in a Ratchet and Clank game, I argue this is a bit more dull. The closest I can compare it to would be the final level in Deadlock, where you're in basically the engine underground section of Dread Zone, which is there's a lot of orange, blacks, and brown. So instead, here it's a bit more colorful than that. But there's still a bit of a spirit left. While most of the other climaxes tended to be on a specific planet that had a lot of significant new stuff added to it, or there was something else to give it a sense of climactic stuff. Again, in the original you get back on Veldin, but the climate has changed significantly. Tools of Destruction, you're back on Fastoon, but not only you have the gauntlet of the fight to go through, but an entire new portion of the planet to go through,
This is quite the thing you have to get past. Not only being shot at, but also the really, really loud noise, like the game's audio is being distorted.
Yeah, the drama.
Like, shoot, even in Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, essentially, which is essentially a Metroidvania, Scuttletown pretty much becomes taken over by Ammo Baron later on in the game, so you have to come back to an evil version of that, essentially, like... And mind you, I get it. This could have worked, platform-wise, but like you said, they don't do much, and that's the biggest problem with this as a remake, reimagining, remodel, whatever you want to call it, is that at the end of the day, the sum of its parts feel less than that of the original. That is something you should critically avoid with any sort of remake, redux, or whatever, essentially. The only time it works is if the original was too bloated or whatnot, which... No, the original was not.
Identification successful. Welcome, Captain.
I've had some time to think about it over the course of this project, and I think I've come to realize that while doing this game again, ever since the first time I did it, has given me some appreciation for it, ironically, the whole thing kind of has lowered my respect for the 2016 project as a whole, essentially. For as good as this game is trying to be, it is obviously held back by the movie, but even the game itself does some weird stuff. Like, again, maybe it was executive mandates, or maybe it was something the dev team decided, or it was something still accruing to the writers' original vision.
Or, this is just throw it out, was at the end of the day just a complete waste of time and effort. Noble intention maybe at its core, but at the end of the day, it still could have been avoided and just have a new game being made. Sure, like I said...
This comes off to me more like a bit of a... Since there wasn't a Ratchet and Clank game for a few years at this point, I get the feeling this whole project was more like a stopgap.
There was also the fact, remember, I don't remember if it had been already released or was in development, but Insomniac at this point was also making Sunset Overdrive for Microsoft, so I get the idea, and remember, they had not been bought fully by Sony yet, so I get maybe the idea that Sony might have been afraid that they were going to lose one of their studios to a competitor, potentially.
I do wonder if it may have also been Insomniac worrying that Sony might put the brakes on Ratchet and Clank, because... Here's the thing. I think one thing I can kind of come to the conclusion in is that you could honestly argue that, while maybe not the 2016 game on its own, the 2016 project as a whole could be considered the worst thing that's happened to Ratchet and Clank as a series. Now, mind you, there have been worse games, arguably. Deadlocked arguably was even farther removed from what Ratchet and Clank should be. Secret Agent Clank was all kinds of bonkers. Quest for Booty was booty. Q-Force is just way too short. But you know what's different between those games and this project as a whole? This could at worst be seen as, okay, bumps in the road. That was weird, but we're gonna get back on the saddle eventually. Even the PSP games, which were essentially what we had until we came back with Tools of Destruction, one could say, look, what happens on the PSP stays on the PSP, essentially. But not with this. This project had two big problems before and after. The before effect was that, as far as we knew, this was going to be the new status quo for Ratchet and Clank. So they needed to come out of the gates with something that was amazing, and one could argue is even better than the original. Needless to say, that was not the case. But the worst part was the after effect. Because want to know what this project did that no other Ratchet and Clank fiasco managed to do? It effectively put the series on ice for no less than 5 years.
That's also because Insomniac was busy to do their superhero stuff, you know. Again, outside of, I think Sunset Overdrive was finished by 2018, I think. But they were also doing the first Spider-Man, and then they got to work immediately both on Miles Morales and Rift Apart, you know. It was just...
that ass shot.
Rift Apart was announced, I think in 2022, I think, but it was in development for a bit at the very least. So, you know, we have to remember that also the sad fact that a lot of games these days take at least minimally 3 years to be made, if not much more. So, you know, what we did not knew about before the announcement, we now know in hindsight that Rift Apart had been in development for a while. So it's more of a case where, you know, the cost and the tech being used prevented us to know more information before a certain point. But, you know, the gap between the release of this game and the beginning of developing Rift Apart was not as big. Sure, compared to the rest of the franchise, it was still relatively noticeable, but not as much.
Identification successful. Welcome, Captain.
Does blowing up planets make anyone else hungry?
Captain Qwark identified.
Chiseled abs detected.
Check it! Wanna have the best weapon ever? Upgrade your sheepinator. I just bought one of those for myself. I can vouch for its effectiveness. Oh, wicked! Now you're almost too powerful.
Hello, Captain Qwark. You look very heroic today.
That's it. Is this really most of the level just stealth and
Remember,
you eventually have to attack because you can't jump
Remember,
while
it's-
hollow guys?
It's basically structural similar to how Drek's fleet level was constructed, just without the section out in space.
I don't know why. Something about this
Yes,
version just
Ratchet,
feels
that's
less...
Clank, I know.
I don't know why. Something about this version just feels less engaging than that version.
That's
did.
because, you
Oh,
know,
well.
it's a quickly construct level based on a set piece in the movie that was already used 2 parts ago, and now has to be reproposed because that's what the plot demands.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, in the movie that was used as more a twist, like, oh, we snuck in, but, you know, it's more obvious from our end here. And I get it, game and
The
all,
movie,
gotta
if
make
you
a
don't
gameplay
remember,
sequence out of
the
that.
movie just glosses over the fact that they infiltrate. They really just cut to Ratchet arriving immediately at the core. Which, to be fair, again, this is going the opposite direction, but it takes forever to get there, but, you know, I understand that the movie was, you know, also rushing to the finish line.
And you know, that's just a boggling thing. Like, okay, the game, I get it. It was tethered to the movie, but why the hell did they not give the movie more runtime? Like, granted, it seems
yeah,
like...
remember, the budget was still very minimal. I'm surprised they managed to squeeze out... Sorry, I'm surprised they managed to squeeze out that good of an animation with that little budget.
Yeah, I mean, granted, a step like Godzilla -1 apparently has shown, apparently even on a limited budget, you can make something look incredibly good, so long as you know what you're doing and have, like, the best people for the job.
Keep in mind, it's still two different kind of things for CGI. Remember, the movie was first and foremost a completely animated CGI movie, rather than having maybe a prevalent still, but, you know, use of CGI, but still having the opportunity to insert it in live action shots.
That is a good point. I'm just mainly guessing that maybe it managed to look that good because the people really knew their craft for it, I'm guessing. Though, yeah, I guess you do raise a good point that that might have been why the movie was as short as it was due to budget. Like,
I'm still baffled on why Sony did not use its actual, you know, animated division that they do have, you know.
That legit is surprising.
What,
like,
they were
dude,
too busy making Surf's Up direct-to-video sequels or something?
Wait, oh god, I forgot it was Sony that made those movies. Christ. And how well did that sequel do? Oh yeah, direct-to-video. Jesus Christ. And what's more, for some reason they decided to make it a WWE collab. Like, not just like a case of, oh, we have guest stars. Like, no, it's basically the WWE guys as penguins.
Okay, it's been a long time since I saw the first movie, but if I remember correctly, it's trying to follow up how the first movie was shot, which was kind of a quasi-documentary. One of those reality shows about, you know, in that case, surfing. Or maybe they were trying to do something akin to that, but whatever. My point being, Sony did have an animation development studio, and instead they outsourced the whole thing to someone else. It really is the equivalent of, you know, Disney not using the Marvel brand for every single Star Wars comic they have, and instead outsourcing it to, say, IDW for the more kid-friendly retelling of the movie adaptations that they had. Yes, apparently those are big.
Yeah, like, it's weird. So we have the IDW retellings of the movies, even though they do release proper, well, more proper comic adaptations on another line. Like,
which my point is also the fact that Disney owns the comic company that normally does the adaptations. You know, it's less bureaucracy, it's logical to use that.
Like, were IDW just offering that much money for the rights to adapt
maybe
a movie?
an equivalent to how Bandai Namco is, you know, doing the lift for re-releasing some of the Sony stuff, like Everybody's Golf. Sorry, that is a new game, technically. And the Patapon Duology or Freedom Wars, I don't fucking know.
Bringing this back to the game, maybe it's me just forgetting, but if I understand correctly, if I recall correctly, Qwark basically... Sorry, Nefarious basically just betrayed Drek because he wants to shape the world in his own image, I think, by the end.
He wanted to sabotage the whole thing and then move to another because he already got paid. Remember, before while Ratchet and Clank are about to attack, he was trying to flee on his own minor ship when one of the Blargs told him, actually you're required to kill the interlopers.
You know, it really just kind of begged the question, though. Why didn't he just wait until Drek completed his plans and then just go then?
I get it, yeah, he might have, he wanted to take advantage of the situation before Drek might have disposed of him, something like that. It's worth noting that the movie goes to powers to showcase that, you know, Nefarious is pretty much in control from the get-go. Like, that my favorite scene is still the one where he is suggesting to corrupt Qwark, and he's praising his movement, his body language, and how he talks to Drek as a double meaning of basically saying that he's treating Drek like a moron, and obviously he's falling for it. So there is technically that, but they really changed the fact that instead of actually going for, you know, his own maniacal you know, personal motivation, they actually instead wanted him to be an opportunist and reflect the fact that he was a previous Galactic Ranger that defected, by saying that, you know, he just goes whatever he pleases rather than wanting to build an empire on his own. Kind of like which instead what he wanted to do in the games. Maybe that was they were trying to build up in a sequel that they never made, but who knows. Anyway, just to mention, because it's something that happened also with the previous Gold Bolt in this location, since there are new locations for Gold Bolt in the original game. You see, the game, you know, just by moving the camera around, I noticed the Gold Bolt, meaning that I connected my dots, understanding that there was a way to reach it. I look around in the area, and I did notice the platforms that actually went there. You know what the game did not do, and I did not need it to? You know, yellow paint to cover the legends, or Ratchet talking to himself and saying, there must be a way to go up there, where? You know.
So basically, the guy who paints ledges yellow is your mortal nemesis.
Look, no, okay, only to an extent. Like I said, I want that to feel organic, because the major problem that it is here, as noted by other people, is that ways to guide the players to somewhere else have been done since the beginning. Again, red barrels that are explosive in shooters, you know, it's as basic as that. But you know what they try to do? To make them organic in some fashion, to be part of the environment, to give a justification why will be that. But for some reason, companies in recent times have decided that the best way to do this is to use not even differently colored, just specifically bright yellow paint to cover up potentially ledges or even barrels, like in Resident Evil 4, the remake Resident Evil 4, you know, in the most intrusive way possible. And it's not even an option that you can toggle on and off, like, say, the red markings in Mirror's Edge that help you, you know, understand better where to do the parkour, you know. That, or the detective mode in the Batman Arkham games, or different clones of that,
I was
like,
actually about to mention those, yeah.
You know, they are there by default, and their best shot is to use external mods that fans actually go painstakingly out of their way to facilitate the process, but otherwise they're just there, and I do believe they break the immersion, you know.
Yeah, no, I do get what you mean. Like, a smart developer does know how to do this or that. Now, again, in the older years of gaming, I could chalk that up to developmental limitations, so you can only do so much. But no, by like the time of, say, Uncharted in the PS3 era, yeah, there were arguably ways we could have done it, like maybe have specially colored vines or whatnot that show this or that. Like, as far as I know, that whole game is pretty much done out in the wilderness, essentially. Some might say maybe it's done yellow to keep it simple for, you know, disability's sake, you know, maybe for accessibility. Yeah, but in that case, I would say maybe have it be a toggle.
For someone who has never played Mirror's Edge, most of the game has a very white color palette to it, or still very bright colors that are very on the lighter shade of side, like cyan, for example. So when the protagonist activates her, special sense, it's not even a superpower, just the fact that she's really good at parkouring. She immediately spots what are the best points so she can use this parkour, and those get marked with a bright color red. The coloring is mostly there to be easier to identify in highlighting, so being bright yellow is probably because of that. But again, because it's put there by default, it's it still really feels very intrusive. Again, let's go back to the barrels of Resident Evil 4. You want to make sure that they are highlighted as an object that the player might be incentivized to destroy, even though, again, the original made it so that every single barrel could be destroyed, so once you were done with the first one, your brain immediately activating to recognizing that. You want them to stand out, okay, put them a label on it that has like a figure that represents what the Spanish cultists are doing, so that they stand out from the level design, but it feels still organic to it, because again, at the end of the day, the problem with that is not necessarily just the fact that it makes things more easy to spot, it's that they're doing it feels more lazy, the level design, more than anything.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna give some devs the benefit of a doubt. In a case where budget might be stretched thin and they're trying to focus on making the game look good and also play well, if it's a case where, the budget was stretched thin and they can't afford to do like a relatively environmental blended in way to show LEDs, then maybe a little bit of a glowing thing here or there.
Let me put another example then, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because that has also been kind of a contestant for that. The ledge is very painted yellow. Let's use the original to compare that, specifically the Northern Crater first visit, where you need to have the whole minigame about Cloud not having to, dying of frostbite, so he needs to warm himself up while climbing the mountain. If you don't remember, in that game, the path that you were supposed to go was highlighted, so the game gave you an idea where you were supposed to climb, because it was part of a background that you needed to follow, but it was done just in a lighter shade of the coloring of the mountain, so it did not feel out of place, but still, made you visible. And, as usual, you could turn on and off via pressing select the point where you could grab the wall with the green triangle thing, and the point of enter and exit of the background, which you could do for the rest of the game. So not only a game on the PlayStation had better ways to be organic while communicating to the player, but it also had the optional toggle on and off or something that they had that. How the fuck have we regressed in 20 years?
I chalk it up to what I pointed out is the problem with a lot of modern gaming these days, where companies will focus too much on budget, look as good as we can. And by look as good as we can, I mean, first and foremost, they think we gotta get it as high definition, as high rendered as possible. Make it so that you can see the crust coming off of someone's skin when they scratch, essentially. The problem is, like I mentioned, the priorities in that case.
By the way, sorry, Joe, give me a second. This is your last dialogue you get before entering, and as a result, this is the last line. These are the last lines of dialogue that the Galactic Rangers have, in the game. I don't think you get to see them in the ending. Anyway, let's get the Rhino.
Good job, sport.
Joe, does this mean we can fight Rhino to Rhino with Nefarious?
You'll see.
I just have to attach the induction rod, refocus the emitters, and blammo! One new Rhino.
And yeah, it has the same design that it had in the movie.
Happy hunting!
I love it! Ratchet doesn't even say anything, and
Again, Joe, I'm gonna need to rush this out the window. No, don't ask me what music...
He's indestructible.
Don't ask me what music they're using. Maybe it's something that was in the movie, but it wasn't copyright claimed, so I have no fucking idea. I don't think it's a piece of actual existing classical music. I don't recognize it, so...
now that I've had
do you mind?
now that I've had a good time to listen to it, I must say it, the soundtrack feels lacking, which, to be fair, the soundtrack from the original wasn't the most memorable either, but again, it's just another kind of footnote into the issues with this game.
Alright, let's go to the Deplanetizer core, or at least the gravity stabilization.
I could never get past this upcoming boss.
Oh, you see.
Copy that, Ratchet.
First we have one last hacking minigame, which is piece easy by the way. I don't understand why they dropped the difficulty for this one, if in the same level you need to do one previously that was possibly the hardest in the main game.
Okay, if I recall correctly, I think if you lose this boss fight, you have to do the hacking minigame again, so
I don't
maybe
remember.
they made it easy. Maybe they made it easy so that, you know, in the case that, you know, you do have to do this every time you lose to the boss fight, it wouldn't be,
There you
you know,
go.
that much of a hassle to do each time.
Warning, gravity stabilizer deactivated.
Remember, that core is nuclear, so be careful. What was that?
Butterfingers.
I love Qwark's
And
face.
so everyone died.
And there you go. And yes, thankfully, this means also you get to have a proper boss fight against Qwark. Well, I wouldn't say on foot, but he's using a jetpack for the most part. The thing is that he's not really using much of the weapons that he used in the movie, which mostly because those were kind of sort of a callback to previous games. But he has a bit of a trick up his sleeve that we haven't seen up until this point. You're about to see.
I do get that it's a gameplay movie thing, but I kind of had to laugh at how abruptly cut off that cutscene is.
Yeah.
It's like...
There you go. Here's a first. A Groovitron is being used on you. And yes, your movement is
snap.
automated. You can spin a bit, and what you need to do is to aim yourself at the Groovitron ball as it descends in order to destroy it, you know. But
That's
again,
neat.
it's something new, it's something interesting, and it's another case of a weapon that is being used on you in a creative way. That's, like I said, that is a testament of Insomniac at least trying to do something for this game. But in the movie, Qwark was just trying to use, I forgot which specific weapon, like the one, the ice cannon, I think, from All for One, and then the tornado weapon from Tools of Destruction. And again, why would you do that? So that thing sucks with the 6 axes.
Wasn't there like a variant for like All for One where it becomes more powerful the more people you have? I think the
Not
one
with
that
the
they showed him
tornado,
using was
Jova.
like...
No, the
I
closest
could've
you
sworn
think
the
of,
tornado weapon
the
came back.
closest you think of is the Thunder's Mac, which creates the cloud that inflicts a mini storm, but that doesn't really involve necessary tornadoes. So yeah, because the only thing is that Qwark uses the Groovitron as scripted points in the fight, as in depending on how low his health goes, including you know, there you go at the very end. So you have a climactic way to finish the fight.
Very
So
good.
we get the clip from the movie where he's so sad, even though he
I
condemned the
like
destruction
it.
of Novalis.
I love it. From the context of the game, it makes it look like by shooting him enough, he suddenly has a revelation.
Instead of, you know, the whole holo card thing that Ratchet tossed to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you recall, in the original, a bit of a scuffle happens, but not that much, and then Nefarious tries to use the Rhino, and Ratchet just whacks him with the Omni Wrench in the face, toss him in the core. Instead, because of, here you go, the tethering, things are about to go a bit differently, as you're about to see.
Qwark, you're not even trying.
Also one of my
Yeah.
one of the better jokes in the movie.
Yeah.
There you go, here's what happens instead. Instead, Nefarious decides, you know what, Turns out I had a portable mech this entire time. Find my RL, bro.
Gadgetron Instamac activated.
Okay. Why didn't you start with that, Nefarious?
Where were we? Ah, yes.
I forgot I had it.
There you go, he said the line. Can we go home now?
You know, I'll give him credit. This is easily better than what the movie did, since, yeah, as we mentioned, Nefarious didn't even get a proper fight.
Yeah,
it's just,
these
pulls out the
games,
rhino,
again,
Insomniac
Insomniac understands the meaning of catharsis. Who would have thought? That's mostly because you have to do the these railing first before racing the arena, and you need to watch out because at some point the rails get sliced off by the mech.
But you know, this does bring me back to my issue with having Nefarious continue the Drek plan, which, yes, was arguably his, but again, in the context of the movie, it really doesn't make sense why he still wants to deplanetize stuff when really that was just him doing stuff for Drek's own stuff because he was hired for Drek. Like,
Chasing me. Why don't you just die?
What's your hurry?
Now it's time to properly fight near the actual core of the Deplanetizer.
I can end your pathetic lives and still have plenty of time to evacuate the station. I'll have a perfect view of the destruction.
villain! I gave myself plenty of time for the self-destruct!
So yeah, this final boss fight incorporates the jetpack, so you have a better fighting chance to flying around. And you know what? Let's use the Rhino. Why not?
This is not only more cathartic, this is actually more epic than the ending of the movie. It's
Beyond
not
everything,
even
it's
funny.
also logical. Like,
I can't be losing to you.
there you
You
go.
know,
However,
again,
as a sort of a not callback to the games, but as a, let's just say, referencing a lot of shooters from the mid to late 2000s, Nefarious regenerates his health by going to the Deplanetizer core regularly. Although, as you can see, it makes the mech a bit more unstable, and it forces you to go to different platforms because he erases them.
again, you know, if there is one thing I did like from this game, it's how they did the jetpack. I do wish that they could have made it more usable in areas, but when it is usable, it's a nice compromise between lets you fly, but for a limited amount of time, essentially. Card get.
Yes, again, one of the last that you get, one of the last packs that you get for the game.
Good to know that even Chairman Drek appreciated the name of the card game, essentially.
To be fair, it is consistent with, you know, the consumerism message in the games. You know, buy our toys and shit. If anything, Gleeman Box will be so proud of that.
Yes, yes he would.
And yeah, I just leveled up the Rhino to level 5 with this. And again, I like to remind you, I'm fighting in normal mode, not even easy. And yeah, in this version, instead, the Nefarious gets tossed into the core. Notably, this game lacks the post-credit scene, so for the purpose of this game, Nefarious is gone. He's dead.
I mean, he got sucked into a star, so.
Like,
And
yeah, that's
now
the
we
thing.
get
Like,
back to the movie where we need to get the whole escape sequence.
yeah, like that's the thing. In the movie, he even falls into the very material that turns him metal. Here, he's gonna need several. He's gonna need more than just whatever surgery the robots performed on him at the end of the movie to come back from that.
I love that because probably the devs did not at the time, they did not even bother with a final sequence where you had to use Drek's scooter to avoid debris while walking through the corridors, which for if it was a tie-in games from the 90s, they totally would have done so.
Definitely. That reminds me, are they gonna completely skip the scene where Drek gets blown up on his planet?
Yes, sir.
God, why?
So they can make a gag out of that, kind of, sort of, and ripped apart, believe it or not.
Well, wow, that's nice that I guess they kind of did that in Rift Apart. Why do I get the feeling that in the
Yeah, I
case of
still
this
don't understand
game...
the symbolism of this.
Uh,
And now we cut immediately to Qwark finishing the story.
The end.
While we're doing, there you go, community service on Care 1.
Story cap.
Also, I keep forgetting the name of this character that they use for the framing device, and I don't even remember who he's voiced by. Poor bastard.
Well,
He's not John
that's
DiMaggio, definitely.
touching. Hey, Ratchet, Clank, how are you guys?
We are doing
They just happen to be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, we don't even see the other Rangers.
To try out some new weapons and, you know, just boring.
I do like how in this version
hold
they
on.
skip the whole...
Great, good, fine, yeah.
what?
Prisoner escaping. Prisoner escaping.
Remember what he said at the beginning?
What did I tell you? No prison can hold ship Helix.
Ready, pal? Always.
Oh, he's voiced by Fred Tatasciore.
Oh, fair enough.
You
It was still
coming?
recognizable. And yeah, we still end with the whole thing about saying, hey, Qwark, wanna go adventuring while to recapture this criminal? Sure, and that's how we end.
Like,
And
the
that's
one
the
thing...
and game wise, that's the last we hear of Jim Ward as
Yeah, I was going to say
Captain
that
Qwark.
as we were recording
No, wait.
this, also, unfortunately, Jim Ward passed away. He had already been, retired out of voice acting due to both COVID and Alzheimer. That was diagnosed with in 2020, which already sad. But he also passed away, unfortunately. In the meantime, Insomniac even did a memorial to him, which was actually pretty nice. But it's still, a big loss, if you ask me. The guy that they got to voice Qwark in Rift Apart sounds fine, if you ask me, but you can tell he's a different person. But hey, work with what you have, basically. But yes, so that's how we end.
So even though Qwark was
post-credit
punished
scene.
in this one, he still gets off, essentially, by the end of it, which, I get it. Maybe that was to set up, the status quo of, oh, Qwark is on adventure, but I'm sorry, I feel like this needs more context. Can Ratchet and Clank just say, oh, this man is
sorry,
served his
Joe, I gotta
community
ship the
service,
game
he's
out.
free to go.
Okay, bye.
The game literally comes out tomorrow.
And
Also, so many
And,
babies were born in the making of these. Remember, 10 months. So someone got to fuck in the meantime.
Jesus.
okay. Someone had left off that Steam somehow. 10 moms, and pregnancies normally take 9 moms, so... But yeah, no, I wonder, were they implying that Sheev Helix was gonna be, the next game's villain or something?
I don't think so. I think it was just there just for the framing device. And honestly, I'm fine with that,
I will say this, at least they skipped over the idea of, oh, Ratchet and Clank are retiring at the end like the film did. It's like, no, apparently they're still part of the Rangers, they just are kind of off and on, so they basically came to visit. And yeah, there we go, Shiv voiced by... Wait, the mayor was voiced by Richard Horvitz?
Yeah, I did recognize him.
The mayor.
Richard Steven Horvitz, the mayor of Nefarious. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So no post-credit scene. So she really will not be invited to the PlayStation Stars Battle Royale initiative. I'm sorry.
What a shame.
Dwayne, so your final thoughts?
I mean, I think overall, in terms of how the game was made, considering how little time they had to make it, I think it's fine. Yeah, but yeah, it could be. I mean, they had the formula to fall back on at least, and they did okay with it, all things considered. And this is definitely one of the better looking PS4 games that I've seen, especially around this time anyway, because the PS4 was about 3 years old at this point. The story is just it's like the movie. It's just kind of
Would you say that this is a better take on that, while overall is still, the base product is still not particularly elevated, but at least this one tries?
the humor's better.
Okay.
As in, there actually were some funny bits.
Compared to the movie, yeah.
guess Ratchet's characterization here is a bit on the bland side. And I've already addressed that, but I'll take this over whatever the hell they were thinking in the 2002 game. Because, yeah, I know. There's been plenty of characters who start off as unlikable at first, but then get better. But the key thing is just to try not make them so unlikable that you don't give two shits about them later. That was the problem with the 2002 game, in my opinion. This game, I think, if anything, this game falls victim to overcorrecting it. It's like you're making a cake, but your first attempt, you put in too much flour so that it tastes extremely bitter and it's very crumbly. So what do you do the second time around? Just put in too much sugar instead.
Now you have diabetes. Congratulations.
You
that's what the characterization of this game feels like in Ratchet's case, anyway. Oh yeah, the music is there.
Would you say that the acting is still fine? Okay, I remember you mentioning that they did not really pick good sound-alikes for some of the roles, like Victor.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the music isn't very memorable aside from the stings you get whenever you collect something.
Mm-hmm.
And voice acting-wise, yeah, I mean, the regulars all sound fine, but the sound-alikes, they don't really sound a whole lot like their celebrity counterparts.
They actually do not sound alike.
Hell,
okay.
If they needed a guy to do a sound-alike for John Goodman, could they just got the guy from the Monsters Inc. games?
I don't know, maybe he would have been too expensive because Disney tends to pay more their VAs. I don't know, just speculation.
Who was the sound-alike for the Monsters Inc. game?
Specifically Scare Island.
He reprised this role, if I recall correctly, for Kingdom Hearts 3, so let me check.
But yeah, no, Dwibs. I know how you feel about Ratchet, but what do you feel about the script in general? Like, the story of the original compared to the story of the reboot, both movie and game, essentially.
I don't really think either of them are that particularly great. If I'm honest, it's just this one was just kind of in one ear out the other, whereas all the Ratchet stuff in the 2002 game just kind of soured me on it.
Well, that's why I said aside from Ratchet, but I'm guessing because Ratchet was the main character, to you, in that case, he drove the plot, correct?
Yeah, and oh boy, imagine the plot being driven by someone you don't like.
Anyway, no, I checked, and Sully in Kingdom Hearts 3 was played by Christopher Swindle, which was someone else compared to Scare Island. My bad.
And I guess to give him some credit, I can maybe understand that maybe they went with the best sound-alikes they could. I feel like it's less egregious when they don't have cutscenes of them from the movie, which immediately shows the difference, which for the most part they avoid, until we have literally the scenes with Victor, where 1 minute he's voiced by Sylvester Stallone. The next, that is clearly not Sylvester Stallone. It's weird because apparently they do get some of the movie voice actresses, between Rosario
like
Dawson
Bella
and
Thorne,
Bella Thorne, apparently to actually record new lines for the games, unless these are like archived, deleted lines from the movie or whatnot. Weird.
But overall, it's this whole project really. I mean, I get the intent behind it, and I appreciate that they tried. But the execution overall was really lacking, especially the movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right then, Jova.
Oh boy! The sad thing is, I went in expecting to full-on dislike this game, but arguably something worse happened. Coming back, I actually found myself pleasantly surprised with this game. The problem was, as it went by, the quality kind of diminished, and unfortunately, that kind of just increases my disappointment with the game by the end. Like, this really could have been something great, but it wasn't. And yes, a lot of that we can chalk up to the fact that they were rushed. Rushed as many movie adaptation games are these days, unfortunately, whenever they want to go hand in hand with a theater release and whatnot. And boy, oh boy, is that a shame. Even still, the game does some weird stuff. Like, I get that it's trying to tie itself more to the original game more, but some weird spots did not feel like they gelled well with the story. Like, oh, I know things are of the essence and you just got over your funk, but now it's time for a hoverboard race. Woo! And then the way that they adapt some of the scenes is not as great as in other sequences. Like, the final trek to Drek's final lair, essentially, is not nearly as exciting. The extra weird thing is, so in this version, Nefarious is most certainly dead, but Drek is apparently left alive. It's a weird reversal of what the movie did, essentially, where Nefarious was clearly alive, albeit roboticized, and Drek was definitely dead, like in the original. Like, I don't know what the game devs were trying to say with this. It's not like they couldn't have, included the scenes from the movie. As far as I know, they could have included whatever scene from the movie they wanted to in the game, essentially. So, no, there are some weird bouts where the lack of cutscenes from the movies, especially ones like, showcasing Qwark's growing desire to rebel and then realizing what he did was wrong, essentially, and then taking out those scenes which lead up to him finally reading the riot to Drek about Nefarious, they're missing. Which in that case kinda makes the game's plot a bit nonsensical at times here. Don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, the game is the definitive way to experience the plot of 2016, but only to such an extent. It still has problems. Most notably, Ratchet. Now, I'm someone who actually did like the original Ratchet, through and through. I actually think Ratchet was unique as far as protagonists go. He had snark, he had a mouth on him, but he was originally not really in it to be the hero. At least not in the typical sense. If he was going to be a hero, he was going to get glory, riches, and fame out of it, essentially. Which he did end up doing, but only after realizing what it truly meant to be a hero, essentially. And yes, it was truly personal. He wanted to kill Qwark after Qwark betrayed them. Clank, on the other hand, was the naive, bright-eyed fellow who thought he knew what was best, but in reality could be just as wrong as Ratchet. In this version, Ratchet's a bright-eyed wannabe hero, and Clank's just the one who knows better, even though he was born yesterday. Maybe that was to add some irony to it. I don't know. It's not effective, though. Ratchet feels like if you were taking puzzle pieces from 3 different puzzles and tried to merge them, but obviously the puzzle pieces do not fit. Like we've mentioned, he has traits you might see in some other characters, but they never truly come together in the end to form a complete picture. He's just bland. And it doesn't even feel like he gets a proper arc or anything. It's just, oh, cool, I'm a Galactic Ranger. Oh no, Qwark's a traitor, I'm sad for a bit. Clank's come to pep talk me, I'm back in the game. Like, he never really gets any big growth or character change from it. He's more or less the same bright-eyed, naive guy he at the end of, well, okay, more so the movie than the game, because one thing I'll give credit to the game, they seem to skirt around that, though they kind of do hint that they may be taking time off from the Rangers since they're going back to visit them. Again, you know what? Which just leads to the issue of the fact that the game's ending is rushed as all hell, and it's like, for such a big epic, it's like we hit a wall all of a sudden. Oh, day saved. Go home now. Boom. Ironically, if anyone, I guess, was treated better, it was Qwark, essentially. Mind you, for the project as a whole, because, like I've mentioned, game-wise, yeah, Qwark's arc kind of has an axe taken to it. And you know what? That might have been Insomniac not digging the fact that Qwark supposedly got off with, like, a slap on the wrist in the movie, but this doesn't feel like the best answer since we don't get to see a lot of Qwark's development, which is really weird since he's the one telling the damn story in this one. It's just, oh, suddenly he wants to have a talk to Drek about Nefarious, even though I don't think we even see the scene in the movie where he sees that Nefarious is working for Drek, so what the hell? And yeah, villains-wise, is even worse, because Nefarious and Drek are barely in this game. Like, sure, you'll get a few cutscenes with them here and there, but they don't have the presence that Drek had in the original game. I mean, and even in the movie, Drek had more of a presence, before getting usurped and betrayed by Nefarious. I will say this, though. Gameplay-wise, it's good overall. It's fun, but at the end of the day, the definitive way to experience the original story is the original game, essentially. There's, almost no point to playing this. Mind you, I would not mind playing this if this was the only thing I had to play, but aside from that, I can't think of much reason to really come back to this universe as a whole. The music, unmemorable, essentially. The characters, for the most part, still relatively unmemorable. Arguably just as much as they were in the movie, essentially. The lore of this will not matter because that got reverted, so we're back to the original lore. Again, unless they do something really crazy like what Tio suggested, but Jesus Christ, I double dare them to do that and honestly think that there wouldn't be
More of an Easter
all
egg
the
than
backlash in the
anything.
world
Set your
against it.
expectation accordingly.
But yeah, no, at the end of the day, yes, this game is perfectly fine to play. I just don't really recommend it unless you truly want the entire full Ratchet and Clank experience, because it just doesn't feel like it matters. You get an Easter egg in Rift Apart, and that's it, essentially. We already went into great lengths about how the movie feels like a waste of time, so that's unfortunately what this whole project feels like. A waste of time. Shock of all shocks, it didn't work, essentially. That's quite apparent in the fact that, well, they went back to the original continuity, so like we said, this all could have just been its own original project. We could have gotten a new Ratchet and Clank movie that was just a part of the original continuity. Could have been its own thing. We could have gotten a new Ratchet and Clank game that didn't have to be tethered to the movie, and thus could have gotten the time and love that it cared, essentially. What we instead got was this project, which left the series on ice as far as fans knew, until Rift Apart was announced, and well, now we're back to waiting, but at least the future doesn't feel nearly as uncertain as this one left things feeling for the time being. Tio, your thoughts?
Not a lot that I can add outside of just my personal feelings to the game. It's still a fun experience on its own, if you ask me, and a better way to tell the story of the movie than the actual movie itself. It still feels like you're kind of required to watch it to understand fully what is going on, because a lot of the stuff it's only happening off screen or implied, unless you're an hardcore Ratchet and Clank fan. In that case, you can piece together, stuff that you might not know. But at the end of the day, it's still fun to play, if you ask me. And it still incorporates some mechanics from the past, like the jetpack running to the Nexus to try to, spice things up. As a remake of the first game, it unfortunately doesn't get quite there because it has to cut away a lot of the words, and the final one, it is kind of a letdown, if you ask me. And the music is not particularly great, but the voice acting is fine for the most part. Only a few times I argue a voice actor flubbed their line, and it was mostly because of what they've said about not being sounding like the movie counterpart, unfortunately. Uh, and there are still all the other problems associated with the movie, like Drek not being the central villain, but Nefarious hijacking things Ganondorf style. Uh, so yeah, at the end of the day, if Sony hasn't tossed this for free to you on a PlayStation, don't bother to get it unless it's for dirt cheap sale. It's already cheap enough on its own being part of the PlayStation Hits, but if you can manage to get it on sale or if they give you give it for free with PlayStation Plus. I haven't checked if they do it, I don't think so, but in case, get in that occasion and play it. But otherwise, don't really spend too much money on this. It's unfortunate that, again, we need to come back to the fact that a series like Patapon has better coverage in terms of game preservation than the entirety of Ratchet and Clank when it comes to Sony IPs. Let that sink in, for example. But instead, strictly just on PC, fans had to start potentially just with Rift Apart, unfortunately. And I don't think this game will be re-released anytime soon because it's a deeply entrenched tied to the movie. I'm gladful that they did not forget about it in order to give it a patch for the PS5 in order to run at 60 FPS and have better load times, and they made the bouncer available for everyone. But that's pretty much it. It's where it stops. So, it's a thing that will be probably forgotten. I still wish that the original games were released in a better fashion than just the PS Now streaming service, but you can make the argument that at the very least there is something which is more that can be said to a lot of other Sony games that are still buried right now, like Blasto, for example. Anyway, that's it for the main game, but we're not done quite yet. Tune in for the next part, where we see the extras, like all the holocards, and what Insomniac did for the Insomniac Museum in this game. Temper your expectation
boy.
accordingly for these two. See ya.
See you then.